I'm retired now, which means I have less to fill my days. That's the way it goes. So recently, I've been spending a lot of time on social media, especially watching the World Cup festivities, which I think are great. I love to watch the Europeans exploring America. But anyway, there's also a whole lot of influx about racial tension in America. Racial tension is something that's been both a puzzle and concern for me for a long time. I mean, since my 20s. Uh, so tonight I was watching a movie, Captain America, and at one point the villain said, "When you attempt to suppress a free people with force, they tend to resist. So you have to do it subtly. You have to make them want the change." And I started thinking about that. If you read the commentary, there's a lot of vitriol, a lot of real hatred between Republicans and liberals right now. Conservatives and liberals, I should say. And if you look at the comments on some of these posts, the reels, the shorts that you see on Instagram and X and things like that, and a conservative will say something and a liberal will come back with, "You Nazi fascist, blah, blah, blah." And a liberal will say something and the conservative will come back with, "You commie pinko." I can't say it because it begins with an F and it's not polite anymore. But I'm looking at this hatred, right? This back and forth banter. And one of the things that the liberal people love to say is that conservatives are a bunch of uneducated hicks. And I started thinking about this, right? It's true that a lot of conservative people are working class, tradesmen, and factory workers and things like that, and they do not have formal collegiate education. I have a master's degree from Indiana University. I was a therapist. My degree is in mental health counseling, so I know something about human behavior. I thought about this. Is it possible that conservatives are resisting because they have not been exposed to the propaganda that people who have advanced education have been exposed to? When I was in college, and I didn't go back to college, I spent the first 25 years of my working life from age 18 to 40 in restaurant. My family owned a restaurant. And I went back to college at the age of 43 because I have trouble with my legs. Just leave it at that. I couldn't work standing up anymore. So some of the classes, especially when I was an undergrad, the only way that I passed them was on the merit of my examination scores. Because when I had to write a paper, my professors wouldn't grade them fairly because I refused to conform to the propaganda. And I was thinking about this. All of these kids that go to college right at the age of 18, when they're the most susceptible, and immediately the inculcation begins. They used to give away the New York Times, probably one of the most liberal rags in the country. They used to give it away for free on my campus. Now, why in the world would the New York Times be given away for free? Right? Look at the prices for a subscription to the New York Times. It's expensive. But they gave it away for free on campus because they wanted to spread that word. And I had one professor, who was a conservative. And he used to go on every day. He'd walk in with a copy of the New York Times and he'd say, "What a bunch of horseshit," right? And he said, "I have tenure, so I can say anything I want." I loved him. He was great. And he used to bash on the nonsense that was in the New York Times, the ultra propagandized garbage that they printed. Is it possible that this blowout that we have in hatred between the left and the right, conservative and Democrat, you think about the level of hatred that existed between conservative and Democrat or liberal back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, even in the 80s, 90s. It wasn't anything like it is now. And that's because so many fewer people had been exposed to higher education, right? But now shit, in the last 15 years, a kid graduates high school and they haven't even thought about anything but going to college. As a matter of fact, you talk to the people who are in the trades, heating, plumbing, air conditioning, HVAC, all that stuff. They're just screaming for employees. They're just ready to pay anything for young people to come and join their trade unions because they can't find anybody that actually wants to work. But universities are chock to the brim. And these kids are going into college, and the inculcation begins immediately. And by the time they graduate at the age of 22 or so, they're all in. They've been completely brainwashed. Now I believe it starts in the grammar schools and the high schools. But college is where they really wrap it up, right? College is where they really lay the hammer down. Plus, these kids are away from home for the first time, and they're really interested in exploring and rebelling and counterculturing. I mean, I did it when I was 18 to 22. I toyed with the whole hippie scene and the whole punk scene, and, I did all that stuff. Yeah, I know it's hard to imagine me with a mohawk, but I had one. Great big Liberty spikes. Anyway, I think people have been taught. Just like black people have been told from childhood that they cannot and should not trust white people. And I mean, I can't speak for the entire white culture, the entire white race, but almost everybody that I know has no hatred for black people. They're not interested in promoting any kind of racism. They would really love to work together with black people, but they find black people inapproachable on a real deep, meaningful level, friendship level. Because if you try, oftentimes you're met with hostility. And then, as an obvious reciprocation, if I believe that this culture hates me, then perhaps I'm going to be more reluctant to try. It was just something I was thinking about. I'm not looking to get into any arguments here. It was just something I was thinking about. But it seems to me that there must be some kind of underlying orchestrated current that's pushing us apart. Is it the politicians? Is it some subversive deep state bullshit? I don't know. And I don't want to come off like some kind of a wacko conspiracy theorist. I was just pondering this idea. I was wondering if it held water for anybody. Plus, I only have one other video on this channel, and it's how to restore leather that I made about 15 years ago. And I wanted to see what it would be like to put another one up. The one thing I do know, since I've been spending more time on social media, is that the comments that I see, and forgive me for generalizing, but especially from the left, oh my God, are vile. I mean, vile. So I'll let comments roll for a while to see what people have to say. But if the shit starts getting just completely hateful and not even worth reading, I'm just going to disable them. This was mostly for me, but I am curious. I am interested. And if people have constructive input, man, I'd love to begin a dialogue, especially with black people. I have black friends. I worked closely with black people when I was a therapist at the hospital. As a matter of fact, one of the men that I admired the very most, Dwight, my God, he was fantastic. But again, I would want to ask questions, but then immediately before I did, I say, should I ask that? Should I seek understanding and ask an awkward question at the risk of offending or perhaps even starting an argument, or just let it go? And I have to admit, for the sake of harmony and a good working environment, I just didn't ask. I'm even that way with a man named Clyde that I've been friends with since I was 14 years old. But I just, as a white guy, I feel awkward sometimes because I don't want to piss people off, especially if I know that there may already be that underlying suspicion. I don't. So, like I said, if anybody has any constructive input out there and they'd like to get going, great. But if you just want to call me a Nazi fascist asshole, yeah, whatever. So, there it is. That's my video for the second time in 15 years. I realize it's kind of dark, but I'm a kidney patient and the light hurts my eyes now, so I tend to keep things dim in the house. Anyway, here you go.